Kenny Boyd is down after a 31-10 loss to Garland in a matchup of two district favorites in 10-5A. But if last year's any indication, they're not out, as Broncos head coach Don Drake is with us now. And Don, you would hope that this year would follow the script of last year. You lose to Garland, but you don't lose again on your way to the district championship. And I'm sure that was a part of your message to your players after this one.
It was. This is what I talked to him about after the ball game. I said, we've been in this situation before. You know, obviously it's disappointing because, you know, whether or not we can repeat as champions is kind of a twofold deal. A, we've got to go win out, and B, we've got to have Garland stumble, you know. And so we obviously can't control Garland, but we can control us, and that's got to be our focus from here going forward, is that we've got to go out and be prepared every week and compete every week and win on the field. So, you know, I think for our kids, they understand that, and we'll obviously go back to the practice field today in preparation for Naaman.
We'll talk about Naaman Forest in just a moment, but first looking back to this past Friday night at Ron Post Stadium. As we mentioned, a huge clash between Boyd and Garland. Boyd, the defending district champion, against the flagship program of Garland ISD, a team used to winning this district. And Don, one of the primary concerns coming in was speed for Garland, especially defensively. They contained your running back, Brian Driscoll.
They did, and I knew coming in that, you know, our opportunities for breaking long gains were going to be minimal just because they have so much speed on the defensive side of the ball. And it proved true. You know, we did not execute as well offensively as we needed to in order to be able to move the football efficiently down the field. We did at times, but then at other times we did not.
You saw the hit on Curtis Ladd just a moment ago as he stepped out of bounds. That knocked Ladd, your starter, out of the game. You had to put in Russell Williams as well as Tyler Phelps. And after one quarter, this was a game, despite the injuries to Ladd and your right tackle, Trevor Haynes, who was knocked out. It was a 14-10 game in favor of Garland.
Yeah, it was a really close ball game. You know, we gave up a long touchdown, or two long touchdown scores there in the first quarter to give them their 14 points. You know, I thought we took advantage of a turnover they had to score a touchdown to make it, yeah, that turnover there, to put us up, or to come back to 14-10, but then we really collapsed in the second quarter, and we had two turnovers, and it led to points for them, and it really put us behind the eight ball.
Russell Williams plowing in from a yard out. Once again, Garland nearly putting it on the ground, able to recover it. Your defense competed all night, even though they gave up the quick strikes. You mentioned the 79-yard pass from Russell to Jatavion Green, as well as a 75-yard touchdown run in the second quarter. After halftime, Garland didn't score any points.
No, they didn't. And I think if you look back at Garland's scores, one was on a scoop and score off a fumble that we had that they got a touchdown from. They had two long scoring runs and a long scoring pass. Other than that, offensively, they really didn't move the football very effectively. You know, and I knew going in we couldn't afford to give up big plays, and unfortunately we did, and really put ourselves in a bad position to be able to come back and try to make a game of that.
Driscoll with a sensational return here to give your team good field position. As we mentioned, he was held in check, 27 carries, only 119 yards. He didn't go for 340 or 276 like the last 2 weeks. Garland flying around to make sure he didn't break any long gainers.
Yeah, they're very, very good defensively. They always have been. That's one of their strongest suits as a football team, is they play great defense, and they make you earn everything that you're going to get, and they make you have to execute perfectly in order to be able to continue drives, and we were not able to do that on Friday.
Jamal Palmer did have a personal milestone. Your defensive end, the Baylor commit, became your all-time leading tackler. Not bad for a defensive lineman.
No, it's pretty good, and I've been really, really proud of Jamal. You know, he's one of those kids that comes out and plays hard, and he plays well. Every opportunity that we take the field, you know, he ended up with 15 tackles the other night. 2 of those were tackles for loss. Phenomenal night for a defensive lineman.
You had to rely on Williams and Phelps at quarterback when Ladd went out. How did they perform overall, considering the circumstances?
Well, the 2 turnovers that we had in the second quarter, both were fumbles, you know, from Russell, so that was unfortunate. One of those they scooped and scored. You know, Tyler came in the second half. You know, again, it was a change to see if we could kickstart a little rhythm, get the ball moving down the field. You know, unfortunately, we weren't able to get any kind of consistency with either one, which was unfortunate. And as I said before, as fast as Garland was, you know, you weren't going to break off any long gains. You know, I mean, a 5-yard carry against Garland is a pretty good running play. You know, I mean, it really is. And And I think it, you know, it shocks us sometimes, you know, even though we prepare our kids for that, we talk about that. You know, when you're used to chewing up 15 and 20-yard gains on the ground, then all of a sudden you're getting a 5-yard carry and you get up. And for me as a coach, I'm like, hey, that's a good play. It's now 2nd and 5. Let's go get the first down. That's where the consistency piece has to take place, you know. But I think sometimes to our kids, it's almost a shock to their system, like, well, I mean, Brian just carried the ball. How come he didn't have a 15-yard gain, you know? Right. Well, that's because there's so much speed on the other side. And so, you know, we have to get better in our execution and being consistent down after down after down. You know, it's not that we can't move the football against them. I think in our first possession we did a really good job of that. And then again at other times during the game, you know, we would have a good carry. You know, we would move the chains, but it was that consistency down after down that we lacked.
And we say 119 yards on 27 carries. That just seems pedestrian to Brian Driscoll, considering what he had done the previous 2 weeks. About this offense overall, that first possession, you lose Ladd. You hope to have him back coming up next week against Naaman Forest. Trevor Haynes, an unfortunate leg injury for him, a starter at right tackle who had really been coming along here in his junior season. That's unfortunate. Matt Lukey takes his place. You had to deal with injuries all of last year. At one point or another, you had 6 key starters down for various lengths of time. What do you tell your team this year now? How do they handle dealing with new players plugged into different positions?
Well, just as we did a year ago. I mean, somebody has to step up and fill that role and learn to play at a high level themselves, you know, and that's the message that you give them. You know, hey, somebody's got to step up. This is your opportunity. You know, this is your year to be our Mackenzie Poe, like we had a year ago.
Absolutely.
You know, he had to step in the defensive line who played so great for us last year. And so, you know, to me, the kids that are on the sideline, you know, that are waiting for their opportunity, I mean, this is their opportunity to step in. I mean, this is Matt Lukey's opportunity to show that, hey, I can go do this. I can be that starting right tackle, and I can help this football team. And so, you know, hopefully he takes that as a challenge, and he embraces it, and he goes and plays well.
On to Naaman Forest, a team that is 1-4 overall. They've dropped their first 2 district ball games, including a close one to Lakeview Centennial this past week. What do you see from Lakeview overall, team that hasn't won since week 0?
Yeah, you know, Naaman struggled. I mean, they beat Rockwall to start the season, and they lost to Plano East, which, you know, is a very good football program. They lost to Rowlett, turned the ball over, you know, really got behind the 8 ball themselves early. They actually outgained Rowlett in that football game. They just turned the football over, gave up some special team scores, you know, and then last week they lose a close one to Lakeview. So, you know, they're struggling right now. I mean, our biggest focus has to be us, though, you know, and that's kind of what I tell the kids is, you know, we've lost 2 football games this year, and in both of those losses, I did not feel like we played very well, you know, and I don't say that simply because of the score. I say it in terms of looking at the film and looking at the way that we execute and the way that we play compared to weeks where we have won and our kids have made those plays, you know. And so our biggest focus is us and what do we have to do to make sure that we pick up our level of play, we pick up our level of execution so that the next time we take the field, we play as a team that's playing as good as they possibly can, you know, which I didn't see that on Friday. And so, you know, Naaman's going to come in. They're going to be prepared. Obviously, they're upset after their loss last week to Lakeview 12-10. You know, Coach Elam does a great job over there with that group of kids. They're going to play hard. They're going to get after it. I can guarantee you on their practice field today that they're going to be focused and they're going to be intense because that's the kind of football coach he is. And so we're going to be about the same thing. We're going to be focused and we're going to be intense and we're going to do everything we can to fix our issues so that Friday when we take the field against Naaman, we play better than we did this past week.
And Mark Elam has another standout running back at Naaman. Last year it was Tank Mitchell. Now it's Joaquin Davis. He's the 5th leading rusher in the area. Of course, Brian Driscoll, number 1 atop the Area 5A rushing list. Davis seems like a talented back as well.
Yes, he is. You know, and it's the same thing that we said about last week. You know, we feel good about our ability to stop the run. You know, obviously last week they broke off a couple of long runs for us. Again, speed was a factor in that, I think. But we've got to be able to run from our secondary positions and make those tackles so that we're not giving up touchdown runs of 79 yards, you know. And it's the same thing on Friday against Naaman Forest. We've got to be consistent in terms of our tackling, filling our gaps, making our reads so that we lock the guy up for short yardage gains and force them to have to drive the football methodically down the field. You know, that's the biggest challenge for an offense is to have to go over and over and over again snapping the football to get a score. You know, and there's not a lot of offenses out there that can snap it 12 to 14 times and end up in the end zone. I mean, most of them are going to self-destruct somewhere along the way, and we as a defense have to make sure that we're making them have to snap the ball again before they get in the end zone. So we've got to limit the big plays. We've got to wrap up. We've got to tackle better than we did on Friday. You know, I think we do that, we'll be okay.
Don, thanks for the time. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Boyd is right back at Ron Poe Stadium. The Broncos look to rebound against Naaman Forest Friday night, 7:30 kickoff.